Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Why Marketing is Broken and How Time to Value fixes it. We'll be starting the webinar in the next few minutes. Good afternoon everyone. Welcome to the webinar, Why Marketing is Broken and How Time to Value fixes it. I'm your moderator Ayush and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Craig Baxter, lead strategist at edynamic. Deciding to use sophisticated digital experience platforms like Sitecore is one thing, but time and again, marketers do not realize measurable business revenue uplift, conversion improvement, and the connected marketing ecosystems that these platforms represent. In today's presentation, we'll hear Greg Baxter, lead strategist edynamic, talk about how to drive business value in just 30 days and then how to get to the single view of customer across all channels. And we'll also have questions and answer session at the end. So please send us your questions and we'll make sure to answer them immediately in real time. And now over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Ayush, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you all, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. I think it's a really important concept, the concept of time to value, and what we're talking about is really achieving fast business results with Sitecore. So today's webinar is not about how to just do personalization and things like that per se, but it's about how to align those with significant business outcomes. As marketers today, it's in our remit to shift the needle for the businesses that we work for, and like no other time really in marketing history, we're really being measured, and we have of course more analytics today than we've ever had in human history. So today is about how to harness that power and how to use those metrics and how to run with a really significant business approach. My name is Greg Baxter. I started building websites in late 1994 for Netscape 0.08 beta, so I kind of grew up through using hand coding stuff, using Photoshop 1. I remember the dreaded blink tag. I remember active server pages coming in. I remember frames, and I remember the first database-driven content coming in. So I've been in the industry for a very long time. Prior to edynamic, I spent 8 years with Sitecore. I was one of the first employees in Australia, and when I left Sitecore, I was the longest running or longest serving employee in the region. And my job there was really very much to help customers utilize the marketing capability inside Sitecore. So running stakeholder engagement meetings and strategy meetings to align analytics with business process and business conversion improvement, understanding what strategies we should use around personalization, testing and marketing automation and so forth. So I've been really privileged to see the customer experience or customer management industries grow up from the ground up, and it's been a tremendously exciting time. So I'm going to share with you how we approach those things and some of the results that we get. I was also a part of the Sitecore Business Optimization Services Leadership Group, and we wrote and created a lot of the frameworks and assets around the workshops that we run and the outcomes that we generate. And of course today is very strongly about time to value. This can't be an 18-month project. Too often websites are built, there's a whole lift and shift to Sitecore or a replatforming, and then there is really project fatigue, and phase two, sadly, often never seems to really eventuate for many customers. So this is a concept, and time to value is a concept about how to get super fast business wins, so you can go back to your executive and say, our work around personalization produced this result, and of course this helps get executive buy-in to go to the next level. So I have to spend a little bit of time talking about who edynamic is. We're a global digital marketing agency very much focused on technology around customer engagement. So I'm looking at our MarTech ecosystem and looking at how we can tie that together to drive measurable business results. We're a Sitecore Gold partner. We've been around since 2003. We've generated around 200 Sitecore projects which have been successfully delivered. We've got 100 plus Sitecore technicians and programmers working under our belt. We have 4 strategy and technical MVPs from Sitecore's recognition, and we've built dozens of Sitecore connectors to extend the ecosystem. So we understand that you probably have a Marketo or an Eloqua or an email platform already in your marketing stack, and we're not here to suggest that you should rip and replace those with necessarily one platform. We have to live with those, so we spend a lot of time building technology that lets those platforms talk to Sitecore, and in particular populate the Sitecore experience database with the kind of goal metrics that we use to really craft the user journey. We've won a number of awards. I think it's 14 or 15 in total, just some fairly recent ones. 2015 Sitecore Site of the Year, Webby Awards, Hermes Creative Awards, AVA Digital Award, and CV Technology Innovator Awards. And I imagine that is very much around the fact that we recognized that we have a wide marketing ecosystem, and we really need every one of those parts of that ecosystem working in symphony, or we end up with a very fractured view of the customer, and we end up delivering a very fractured customer view in return, neither of which is fantastic. We work with a number of great brands across the globe, Revlon, American Express, New York Life, Pepsi, JP Morgan. So we really work across a number of verticals, because a number of customers, when we first meet them, say, what vertical do you specialize in? And the reality of this is that every vertical has customers, and customers are pretty much the same across the board. They want a really friction-free relationship with you. They want a digital relationship with you, and they want your digital resources not to tell the same story over and over and over again. They really want a digital experience where your systems sense and adapt to their needs in real time. Otherwise, we're simply training people never to use our websites, not to bother visiting on mobile, don't worry about using the app, because the story never actually changes. And it's a really disappointing result for those people. And also, of course, if we don't service those people, our competitors are just a click away. And we're going to look at some of the metrics around customer engagement and why we should actually do this. So as I said very early on, we connect the Sitecore ecosystem. You can see that we have connectors to Pardot, to Eloqua, to ExactTarget, to Cultura, lots and lots and lots of connectors, because of course we know that you have tools that you're already familiar with that are difficult to transition out of, and it's really our job to make sure that those tools work with Sitecore. So Sitecore in that case really becomes a connective tissue that lets us tie the user journey together, so that if somebody comes in from an email or comes in from a campaign, a nurture campaign, that the website understands where they've come from, understands their intent, and personalizes in real time to deliver them the content, the calls to action, and the experience that is most likely going to move them towards a conversion. So we love to think of ourselves as an inch wide and a mile deep, and what that means is that we are Sitecore specialists. It's one of the only stacks that we work with in our content management framework, and we believe that we should really know that system backwards, and that is the promise of edynamic, that we understand that system, we understand where it fits in the MarTech stack, and we can really drive results from that. We believe that customer experience is the new battleground. it's a truism of, I guess, the way consumers are today, that even brand is not the most specific thing they're looking for. I am the father of, I guess, what you would call millennials, and it's amazing to me constantly how brand agnostic they are. They don't really care what kind of tablet they use. They don't really care what kind of or brand of clothing they buy. What they really care about is that the company that they're dealing with respects them, understands them, does not bombard them with spam or irrelevant messaging, and remains on track and knows them. So in the world of customer engagement, one-to-one marketing becomes really important, and our mantra is there. It's about delivering personalized experiences that are driven by data that engage our customers and drive revenue across the entire customer life cycle. This nearly always starts with the acquisition of an unknown customer, converting that customer from an unknown to a known customer using, I don't know, an email marketing subscription or gated content. But one of the things that we want to do is understand who they are very, very quickly, and we need to be able to store that knowledge in a repository that has deep hooks into the web content management system and other MarTech systems, so that we can surface the experiences that people want based on behavior in real time and, of course, their segment. So the idea behind time to value is to keep this really quite simple in the first instance, generate that knowledge around customers, generate some really quick wins, and then look at stepping up your maturity to a full single view of customer. Now, there's a concept that's been around for a long time. I remember even back in the 80s, companies talked about the 360-degree view of the customer during the CRM revolution. But today we actually have the capability to look at that whole picture of the customer across no matter the channel that they come from, no matter the content that they engage with us, whether it's online or offline through a CRM, whether it's in a trade show, whether it's in a call center, whether it's a web experience. And it's a really exciting time to be in marketing. It's also, I think, a kind of marketing extinction event. So marketers that are not kind of looking over their shoulder and looking at the next generation of truly data-driven proponents of marketing need to be starting to think about how they can actually measure their effectiveness in the digital world. So I'm going to run a couple of these past you very, very quickly. You guys probably know all of this really backwards. For us to say to be truly competitive, your company now has to be completely customer obsessed, which of course means that we need to have the deep knowledge of and engagement with our customers. Gartner say 89% of businesses now expect to compete mostly on customer experience, which again harks back to what I said a little bit earlier. Product is everywhere. Quality product is everywhere. What's really important in the era of disruption, when small, nimble startups can really rapidly eat away at your customer base, is to be able to provide the kind of experience that makes customers loyal. From acquisition through to advocate is kind of the catchphrase that we like to deal with today. Gartner also say that by 2017, 50% of product investment will be redirected to customer experience innovation. And we see that really across the board with some of the disrupt businesses that are operating today. Uber are not just another taxi company. They offer, you know, this concept of your driver, and they offer you the ability, initially they offered you the ability to see when your car was coming. That was the huge kind of innovation, as well as actually not having to pay at the end of the ride, just jumping out of the taxi. So what these startups do is they look for where there is friction in the customer experience, and then they innovate to remove that friction. This is a Forrester research and landmark piece that shows very clearly that the companies in the Fortune 500 over a 7-year performance has a far stronger stock performance than those that are considered laggards. So the real take home from this slide is that not engaging with customer experience innovation and really just offering up the same kind of digital experience day after day after day, like it's kind of Groundhog Day, is actually damaging brands. And there's some fairly shocking outcomes from this from a commercial perspective. Excuse me just one second. sorry, I had to grab a quick drink of water. And one of those outcomes is that incredibly in the last 15 years, 52% of the Fortune 500 companies on the earth have disappeared, and they've more or less taken their customers with them. There was a time when we looked at the Fortune 500 and those companies would be like Barnes & Noble. They were 120 years old before Amazon came along and really took a lot of their market share. So a very small, nimble startup called Amazon a number of years ago now, we all know this company, came in and really hurt Barnes & Noble, and they were a 120-year-old company. So we live in this era where nothing is certain anymore. And obviously customer experience is playing a huge role in this. If we look at Sony, who delivered, I guess, the first Walkman, and then of course Apple with the iPhone, are delivering not just a device that makes phone calls and you can listen to music on, it can store 1,000 songs. So the promise there is kind of 1,000 songs in your pocket, not necessarily the fact that, that you have a phone as well. If we go and look at why these things happened, we can see that right now the stats are fairly scary. 90% of marketers are not trained to calculate a return on investment. 80% of those marketers struggle with being able to demonstrate the effectiveness of their spending, campaigns and activities, and 67% of marketers at this point in time don't believe that marketing ROI requires a financial outcome. I really have to say that I strongly believe those days are going, and they're going quite fast. Marketers now, through the CMO, have a place at the C-suite table, and the line between the CIO and the CMO's budget is dwindling very quickly, and it's a very rare individual who can turn up to work and not show that the value of their work has a significant impact on the bottom line of a company. So the days of being able to say, well, my job is done because we have brand amplification are very much over. What we're talking about now is accountability, and as marketers we have to be able to come in and demonstrate a return on marketing investment on our time and on the increasingly expensive stacks that we purchase. So if you're not starting with analytics, if you're not looking at analytics as the place that you start with Sitecore and pretty much with any marketing stack right now, you are literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater. This has to be the place that we start, because we do need to be able to walk into our boards and our management and say that the work that we just spent 30 days or 50 days or 100 days doing had a financial outcome, and the financial outcome is the increase of conversions across digital channels. And we're going to look at some real case studies about how Sitecore customers have been able to do this, and I've been involved in a number of these personally, and the outcomes are truly astonishing. I've been involved in customer experience projects that have just lasted for a few weeks that have had a 60% increase in sales attached to them, and I've worked on other projects where conversions for people like Auckland and Sydney Airport have been up around 400% on their key conversion metrics. Those are fantastic numbers, and it's a great joy to be part of a marketing team that can produce outcomes like that. So one of the questions that I get most of all in my life is, it seems like a mountain. How do we get to the top of it? There's a real, I guess, fear and lack of understanding around concepts like personalization, because it all seems to be very difficult to do. So when I joined edynamic, I sort of brought some of the philosophy of Sitecore's business optimization services group, of which I was a key part in my region, to play. And that is, it may be a fairly lengthy project to get to a single view of the customer, but there are base camps along the way, and those base camps represent significant changes to digital, a significant maturation of the way digital marketers operate, and they represent very significant increases in either revenue or the core conversions that drive our business requirements. So time to value, this concept that you can do things very quickly with Sitecore to drive revenue and uplift in conversions, is very much base camp one along the way. Time to value's big brother is the single view of the customer. And the single view of the customer is a boil the ocean kind of approach. It's where you plug in multiple channels, CRM, full MarTech stacks. You deliver content into something like a marketing data lake like Hadoop, and you run very significant BI tools across the top of it to create ad hoc reports around your marketing and ad hoc analytics around your marketing. But you have to build a foundation to get to that point. And that foundation, if you're going to use personalization, of course, has to be having a website that senses and adapts to behavior across those channels and from website behavior itself. And time to value is the way to start this. So in edynamic's customer experience maturity model, down on the left we have, our traditional view where we have, a company that's running a CMS, so their website is not static, but it changes based on updates and not on customer behavior. We have third-party traffic analytics like maybe Google or Omniture that is divorced from the web content experience. What it means is that those analytics are just a report, and if you need to make a change to your website strategy around that report, you dial in the programmers, you dial in the UX guys, and you try and build out something. But of course the customer who was having that experience is long gone. So it's really important to have analytics that are embedded into the CMS that can trigger immediate real-time change to content and calls to action. There'll be a third-party kind of email blaster system, so every month companies will spray and pray and they'll blast out the same email to all of their stakeholders, and this is probably the #1 way to disengage customers. I may get one email that's not relevant to me and let that slide, but if I get another one and it's completely irrelevant to me and I click on it and open it, I am going to unsubscribe. There will be ad hoc social updates with landing pages and so forth. We call that kind of flying blind. Time to value is the middle step where we turn on engagement analytics, we turn on rules-based personalization, we undertake profiling, we do some A/B and some multivariate testing on key conversions. We make sure that we align our campaign with immediate website personalization so that somebody coming in from a campaign point, their experience mirrors the intent of the campaign, whether it's a Google AdWord campaign or whether it's a URL painted on the side of a bus. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that the website senses and adapts and understands the customer intent based on the campaign and actually works as the catcher's mitt, to use a baseball metaphor. Sitecore and a personalized website should be the place where you catch and convert. And of course, all of this data needs to go into a customer experience database. And inside Sitecore, that is the experience database. We're going to take a look at it a little bit down the track, and it captures all of the important content around a particular customer's behavior, their profile, their segment, the campaign they are, where they are in the customer journey, and so forth. And time to value represents quick business wins. We know based on experience, and I know very well based on long experience, that you can execute those things in under a 30-day time frame, because the art to this is to focus on the things that are most likely to shift the needle in terms of revenue, and you really generate a laser focus around what's important to the business from a business perspective, what's important, how does marketing, what marketing strategies align with that business, and then we start worrying about engagements, sort of analytics rather, that we would capture on the website. Then we can do kind of the big step up to single view of the customer, and we can plug in every channel. We can look at full customer life cycle mapping, the digital relevancy map across all segments. We can look at full nurture, and that typically has a data lake approach, because the truth is that very few products actually scale out enough to handle the massive amounts of data that come from those. And we'll talk about an approach to that we know works, because members of our team have done this for brands like Exxon, and it represents right now that the marketing data lake represents right now, I guess, the greatest marketing show on earth. It really is an extraordinary outcome. So anyway, let's step back and look at how we get to time to value, because as I said, if you don't have that foundation, you don't have the ability to really even start the journey. And as with the baby out with the bathwater kind of slide, step one is always and should always be about engagement analytics. I've spent 8 years walking into Sitecore customers and logging into their systems and realizing that this very first step has not been undertaken, that profiles are not set up, that goals are not recorded in the marketing center, that there is no nurture capability turned on, and so forth. But most importantly, without capturing those engagement analytics, we do not know who our customers are. It's no longer good enough to say, well, there were 5,000 people on my website and 2,000 clicked here and then 100 clicked there and then off they went to this other place. That doesn't matter. What really matters is what did they click on that page? What can we measure that will show their actual engagement with our product, service, or brand? And then how can we use that to personalize their journey moving forward? And analytics is one of those things that sadly in the web industry has come down to, well, let's just plug in this line of code from Google Analytics, generate the same old stakeholder reports, circulate those, and our job is done. And nothing could be further from the truth. As I said, a static report is helpful, and you know, certainly all of those vanity metrics, how many people came, how many clicked on this, are important, but they don't really tell us how closely engaged a customer is with our brand. So when we talk about analytics, I always like to start, and it makes a great deal of sense to start by crafting all the things that we measure on a website with our business alignment. So this is straight out of Sitecore 101 and Sitecore's business optimization world. So essentially we look at what the strategic theme is of a company. And if we think about it, there aren't that many themes on the earth. I mean, Lexus is affordable luxury, Apple is designer cool, Walmart is lowest price every time. So in the consultancy around time to value, we spend a little bit of time understanding the strategic theme of a company. Most of you guys as marketers will know what that theme is. And then we look at the business objectives that actually allow us to keep the lights on and to grow our business. Underneath those business objectives, we look at the marketing objectives that are traditionally crafted to support both the business objectives, which in turn align with the strategic theme. Once we understand those three things, then we're really able to map the digital goals on a website that will lead to fulfilling the conversions that align with those business objectives. This is super important. So many people measure so many things on a website that it becomes bewildering, and we kind of have a paralysis by analysis kind of scenario come online. I've walked into businesses like Qantas, the Australian national air carrier, and they'll freely admit they've got terabytes of data and they honestly don't know what to do with it. If we take a step back from that, forest of information, and we look at the way businesses actually measure themselves with their sort of balanced scorecard, very few large successful businesses have a balanced scorecard with more than 7 or 8 items on it. And it's Sitecore's belief, and it's certainly my belief because I've seen it work, that when we look at engagement analytics, we really pair it back to the things that have an impact around business objectives and marketing objectives. Let's take a bit of a look at how people do this in the real world. Once we've mapped that business alignment and the strategic theme, we then go into the analytics and we really try to pair them back along high, medium or low levels of engagement, because of course that's the customer journey. If you tipped Sitecore's engagement value scale concept on its side, it is actually the customer journey. Somebody comes on the website, watches a short video, that video interests them, they then might sign up for a newsletter. If they're interested further, they'll sign up for a webinar, they'll request a white paper, they'll request pricing, and they will of course finally request a call or convert on what the big conversion point is on the website. So one of the great disciplines of running the stakeholder engagement workshops I've done now for many, many years has been to whittle back the amount of analytics that everybody in that room, that stakeholder room, has, and really try to make them see that we're aiming at things that we can very rapidly personalize towards. Now, of course, the things that make it to a high level on the Sitecore engagement value scale are the things we optimize towards. It just makes great sense that if a request for white paper leads to a request for pricing, if somebody does a request for a white paper, the next time they visit the site, the next time they see a social message, the next time they access via digital, or the next email they get should be about request pricing for the exact item that they requested the white paper on. In this way, we surface calls to action that are ambient personalization pieces that drive our customers to the next call to action that we want to do. So a real truism of engagement analytics is what we measure is what we optimize towards. Super important part of the journey. So I just wanted to actually not just talk theory with you. I wanted to talk about some real life examples. So let's take a look at a very, very, I guess, famous now case study from Sitecore, which is Nutricia Danone. They sell baby milk powder. They use Sitecore. They actually are at single view of the customer stage right now, but let's take a look at where they started on their journey. So they worked with a friend of mine from Sitecore called Chris Nash, who basically ran them through the entire process that edynamic has kind of extended and finessed and called time to value. So we can see that their strategic objective is to ensure that Nutricia is a brand of choice. Their marketing objectives are down to just three things: acquire members, generate demand, and generate sales, not unreasonably. And the digital goals they measure on their website were membership sign-ups, care line introductions where people could talk to a healthcare professional, and of course under generate sales it was firstly visit the web shop and then purchase or become a member. So they'd managed to very cleverly whittle everything back to these absolute essentials, and at this point everybody knows what the bullseye on the target looks like. You don't have 50 people who think the website should be doing something different. Everyone has an absolute laser focus from the executive stakeholder through to the content authors on what this website should be doing. So here's their actual engagement value scale. And Nutricia is a fairly big business, and it's a fairly broad business, but they were successful in bringing their engagement value scale and what they measured down to a number of things. And what's interesting here, guys, is that it's not necessarily about selling product. It was about signing up for membership and completing what they call the My Situation metric. And this is for pregnant women, of course. And what they really needed to know was the due date and the birth date of that child, because for every week of the pregnancy, the website and digital marketing would change based on the mother's moments of truth. And that is, what trimester is the mother in? Where is she? Has she shown on the website that she's looking at content around dietary requirements or maybe milk allergies and things like that? To understand that, complete online purchase was only a 15-point score in this. So that might seem illogical for people that are essentially running an online store. But let's take a look at the outcomes when they used all of this knowledge that they learned about their customers to actually drive those initial contacts. And this is a fast-moving consumer good, or a CPG in American terminology. So the truth of this is that first online purchase, completing an online purchase, does not shift the needle or keep the lights on for Nutricia. Repeat purchases are the things that are the lifeblood of this company. So not buying one tin of baby milk powder, but buying 20 of them. So by understanding who their customers are and by keeping them very close with membership, they are able to drive some pretty spectacular outcomes. And here are the business outcomes that they drove. 75% revenue growth per month. The marketing team that undertook this, a superstar marketing team. Imagine being able to walk into your stakeholders and say, we grew revenue, actual revenue, by 75% every month once we launched this project. As I said, that one of the most important metrics around these guys was their rebuy growth. So by understanding their customer base, by understanding where in pregnancy they were, where in the toddler's life they were able to increase rebuy by 140%. Again, a stunning statistic, and a statistic that really shows that the marketing team are valuable to the business. These guys are not walking into their executive and saying, well, we had, 200 new likes on Facebook this week. I'm really tempted at kind of this point in marketing's ability to say, who cares about that stuff? What we care about is, are we actually impacting the financial bottom line of the company that employs us? This has turned into 700% year-on-year growth for their e-commerce site across the board, which is an amazing figure, and it really underpins Gartner's initial statement that to be successful, you need to have a deep understanding and a deep relationship with your customers. So if your website is just a giant billboard in cyberspace that never changes, that talks the same message to every single customer you have, it really is time to have a bit of a rethink about this. So let's move on quickly to the second most important thing that you can do in terms of quick business wins. Engagement analytics is a must. Guys, if you don't do that, you don't have the knowledge to move forward. It's just that simple, yeah? Rules-based personalization is the simplest kind of personalization that Sitecore offers. It really is crafted for marketers. It's a no-brainer to implement, and there are a number of these that I tend to use all of the time because they quite simply work. So rules-based personalization is your next step, and of course what you personalize towards are the things that make it high up on the engagement value scale, and you really build these about aligning intent with what people see. The truth of rules-based personalization is that there's an enormous amount of data that is stored in the customer's browser when they visit your website. And Sitecore has simply lifted the hood on this and created a rules engine that lets you pluck out that data and then personalize the journey based on that data. So it's things like geolocation I use very frequently. It's always campaign. I always like to use visit number. So if it's somebody's first visit to the website, they're a new customer. And what you need to do with a potential new customer is build trust. So show the brand marketing video, show the case studies, show the white papers, and if the consumer looks at those, record the goal, and then make sure that that's not there the next time they come back. When they come back for visit number 2, if you've already seen the video, why show the video? That's valuable screen real estate that you're essentially just burning. Goals, of course, so if I'm running an auto dealership as an example and somebody's booked a test drive, the next communication should be around arranging finance and service options with that particular customer. So rules-based personalization has all of these wonderful low-hanging fruit outcomes that we can exploit, and this is implemented in days, not weeks, not months. It's implemented very, very, very quickly and has a profound impact on the experience that your customers generate. Now, a lot of people will be thinking, oh, we've got to go generate all of this additional content. That's true to an extent, but the art of this is about not generating new content. The art of this is surfacing the right content that already exists inside your data repository or your content repository. So it's really about ambient personalization rather than swapping in and out whole pages. So don't make this difficult. Just surface the content that you already have and surface calls to action and signposts that show a customer where you want them to go next. You will undoubtedly create some new assets, but it is likely to be hero image assets and call to action pieces that are graphical rather than long content items. So rules-based personalization is kind of step number 1. Here's an example from Nissan. This is obviously the car company, and what Nissan wanted to do was they wanted to align what people search for in Google Analytics with what they saw when they came to the website. So when you use Sitecore Campaign Creator, you can, and you use actually a Google paid search term, you can capture that search term. So the strategy was quite simply this. If you search for Nissan Juke, when you get to the website, you see Nissan Juke. The videos about Nissan Juke, the testimonials are about Nissan Juke, and so forth. And conversely, if you search for Nissan Patrol, the website is all around the Nissan Patrol. Seems really simple. It never fails to amaze me how well this particular thing works. So, excuse me one sec. I have a bit of a cough and it's very early in the morning here. So the two things that were at the top of Nissan's engagement value scale was an uplift in test drives, because you don't buy a car with a credit card over the internet. So test drive is a core part of their business, and it's something they need to really carefully manage. So the website delivered a 150% uplift in test drives by undertaking personalization, understanding who their customers were. After the fact, Nissan came back and told the team that generated this that their internal metric is that for every 2 test drives, somebody drives out of the lot and buys a Nissan. So what you're looking at here is a 75% increase in sales through the web channel. Again, that's a smack it out of the park metric. That is a super cool marketing event to have been part of, and it quite simply shows that these things work. The second highest thing on their engagement value scale was contact us, and there was a 150% increase in that. So again, their 2 top metrics absolutely launched out of the park. Their goal abandonment was halved. Things like designing your own car, choosing the color of the car, choosing special wheels or the leather interior, which all tells you about a customer's budget, by the way. So extraordinary piece of work here. And really importantly, for a company that spends an enormous amount of money marketing, their advertisement bounce rate dropped by 30%. And what that means is that when people came in from an advertisement, because the first thing they saw on the website was directly aligned to either their search term or the campaign that they came from, they tended to stay on the site and progress through to a conversion. Fantastic outcome. Now we're going to look at profiling and predictive personalization. So this is again one of those things that's considered really quite nebulous and really hard to do. It turns out again not to be too difficult. You do not need to step into the kind of hazy world of a persona here. When we're talking about personalization and profiling inside Sitecore, it often comes down to what product do you want, how much money do you have, and where are you in the purchase cycle. So by profiling, we help our websites understand, or our customers, our marketers understand who is on the website in real time. And if we can understand those segments in real time, of course we can surface calls to action that speak directly to that segment. I've seen so many companies completely surprised by the actual makeup of who is on their website on a day-to-day basis. I recall working with a very large property development company out of Singapore, and they had a bit of content on their website about investors, so we plugged in an investor profile, and they were very shocked by the sheer amount of investors who were actually looking at their website. So of course, they created a content strategy to improve the investor experience on the website as a result. But up until that point, they really had no idea who was on their website on a day-to-day basis. So this is PS Bank. This is another real-world example. These guys are one of the largest banks in Russia, and they decided that they wanted to personalize their website based on profiling. And what they personalized on was just 4 profile keys, right? No huge amount of consultancy or brain melting work here. You're either a personal banker, mums and dads, you're either a private banker but a big client, so a high net worth individual, you're a small to medium bank, or you're a corporation. They also personalize based on geolocation and campaign and source of visit, which are other low-hanging fruit outcomes. And here is their result. What these guys wanted to do was sell loans. That's what keeps the lights on for banks. So they enjoyed a 500% increase in organic loan conversion, which is, again, an extraordinary result. 150% increase in traffic, and also there was a 100% increase in mobile activity, because one of the things they did, as well as revitalize the website and make it personalized, was they went into responsive design and they made a very mobile-friendly site. And of course, the reasons for that are obvious. Back in 2014, the amount of people accessing the web or accessing websites on mobile or tablet devices outstripped desktops. That's just a reality. So one of the other things that we do is around A/B and MV testing. This is in Sitecore 8, an absolute no-brainer. It's now baked into the authoring experience. So when a content author creates a new page, Sitecore will automatically say, hey, do you want to test this page? Do you want to test this graphic? Do you want to test this headline? So step 4 is really all about A/B testing. And again, don't go nuts here. Look at your big calls to action and make sure those calls to action, whether it's a buy now button or it's a book a test drive or it's a download a white paper or use a calculator, whatever it is, test that call to action and keep testing it until you get the optimum result. So multivariant testing and page testing also exists, but A/B testing is the simplest, fastest thing we can do. And what we want to do is make sure that all of our conversions and call to actions, or the key ones that relate to that engagement value scale, are the most powerful that they can possibly be. So here is an example of A/B testing done super well. This is Dollywood. It's a theme park run by the Herschel Group in the States. They're one of the biggest theme park operators, and the theme around this is Dolly Parton. So basically they wanted to run some A/B tests on one of their calls to action, and that call to action was quite simply getting people to make season ticket purchases. So you can see there are 4 there. There is 6 easy payments, $15 with the call to action, purchase today before the offer ends, prices go up soon was one, offer ends January the 3rd was one, and prices go up after January the 3rd was an option. So all these cycle through, and then the software tells you which one leads to the greatest conversions. So if you put 20 people in a room and you gave them the usual pizza and Coca-Cola story and said, tell us which one of these resonates the most, you so often get an ambivalent result. So it's a great thing when the software itself can tell you which one of these actually works, and not just on click-through, right through to conversion. So let's take a look at how this worked. Version 1 trailed a whopping 18%. So that's a significant drop in revenue, nearly 20% drop in revenue using that one. This one came 3rd, top right came 2nd, and the one that won had a significant conversion uplift over the others. So it was a 21.43% increase in people going through and buying the season ticket. If you compare that to the one that came last, you're going from sort of 18% up to 23%, you're up to 21%. You're really making some significant strides in increasing revenue based on A/B testing. So the thing to never forget is that all this wonderful stuff is great, but what's most magical about it is the simple fact that all of this data is captured in Sitecore's experience database. So for those of you that have never seen it, let me just take a moment and explain what you're looking at. Across the top is the timeline of every customer touch point inside Sitecore, and if you're plugging in CRMs and MarTech campaigns and call centers and actual salespeople, it's every touch point that a customer has. Over on the left, it starts typically with an unknown customer, and each of those spikes that you see are actual business outcomes being recorded. So did they purchase? Did they sign up for a newsletter? When did they become a known customer? And we can drill into this and see the content and experience around those conversions. And of course, once we understand what drove a conversion, we rinse and repeat. We can see under latest events the visit number. We can see that Suzanne de Groot here has interacted with Careline. So this is actually straight out of Nutrition Danone. This is not made up. This is a real example. Her latest download was a feeding schedule from 0 to 6 months, so we know how old a kid is. Her best pattern match, as she clicks through the website and his profile, shows you she has a baby at 6 months. The baby appears to have a milk allergy, and Nutricia is delivering her a nutrition and feeding schedule because they want this customer to value the resource, the website, and the digital marketing resources that Nutricia has put together. So we know the basics about her. She's logged in using Facebook or LinkedIn or something, so we've been able to spider out and grab her picture and her social profile data, all of which we personalize towards. So it's a stunning amount of information to capture about a customer. And of course, the entire thing about the experience database is it is designed to be actionable. These analytics are actionable. You can literally reach in, dig out and say, show me everyone who's accessed Careline and who has downloaded a feeding schedule for a baby 0 to 6 months, and show this exact content to them. Make sure the next email they get has that content in it. And when they go onto a social page, reflect that content on the social page as well. So it's really an extraordinary evolution in terms of the way we deal with customers. So what I really want to, I guess, drive home here is that time to value is not this concept of baby steps. It's a giant leap. I'm really sick of hearing baby steps. We've all baby stepped ourselves to death. Let's, buckle up and get on and really do something that shifts the needle in terms of revenue. So step one, set out your engagement analytics. It's not rocket science. It's not as bad as going to the dentist. It's just something that you can do quite quickly if you're focused about it. Step two, use rules-based personalization. The interface is driven for marketers. This is not difficult. Step three, profiles and predictive personalization. And again, profiling can be simple or it can be a ginormous hazy ball of string. Keep it really simple. What are people looking at? What are our products? So definitely profile based on product or service type. Profile may be based on price, and profile may be based on where somebody is in the customer journey, and you've gone a long way. I mean, make it more complex later, but start with really simple stuff, and definitely undertake testing of your major calls to action, and you will get not just positive business results, but probably for the first time you'll actually understand the digital marketing health of your website. And it's a super important thing to do. So the time to value thing in a kind of nutshell, in the elevator pitch, is a structured workshop and delivery offering designed to quickly harness the marketing potential of the Sitecore experience platform in a business first and quick win philosophy that is rapidly designed to enable your marketing team. Don't forget, once you kind of do this once, there's a strong knowledge transfer component to this, so your internal team will be empowered to use the system, because it's very likely we'll build it in conjunction with you. And the intent here is to do this in under 30 days. So you don't have to go out and make a business case. I mean, the spend is relatively trivial. So to have Sitecore and to not be utilizing its marketing power and not allocate a relatively small budget to actually undertaking this is the surest fire way to have at some point the horrible, oh, we've got to pay our maintenance bill now and we're not getting the value out of this platform discussion. So drive value as quickly as humanly possible. The outcomes of time to value is a really incredible thing. It's actually a blueprint around personalization. So we map out the digital goals, we map out the engagement value scale, we actually write what are the rules-based personalization rules that we're going to use in exactly this placeholder on the website. We create and discover the profiles, and we create suggestions around A/B testing, and then we can implement it really quickly because we know what we're doing around this. And you are more than welcome to be part of that implementation. So second a team member, we will work with a team member so that the knowledge around this is internalized. I'm going to finish this webinar off now by talking about where this goes next. But before we do that, let me really just drive home the point. If you're not utilizing Sitecore's marketing capability, you've bought a cannon and you're using it like a pop gun, or as our CEO Rahul loves to say, you have a Ferrari and you're driving it like a Pinto. Believe me when I say the steps to actually driving Sitecore are not as complex as you think. It's not going to take as long as you think. It's not going to cost as much as you think. The point is to just start, and start on a very focused business alignment methodology that drives outcomes for your firm or your company. So where we go after that is right now the holy grail of marketing. Where we want to go is this wonderful thing called the single view of the customer, up at the top right of the edynamic maturity model. And that basically means plugging in all of that rich data that we get from the time to value workshop with CRM data, social data, and marketing automation data. And we tip all of that content into a big data lake like a Hadoop or a database system that is designed for this, and then we're able to run ad hoc reports over the top of it. The thing about vendors like Sitecore and every technology vendor is they can't create enough reports for you. Your needs for reporting change all of the time because your strategy shifts all of the time. If you have all of this data in a marketing data lake, then you don't need a third party to generate reports, because the tools to interrogate those data lakes are things like Power BI, Excel, standard tools that we all know really quite well. So the single view of the customer rolls all of this stuff up, and it really sets us up for the next phase of marketing. It's vital from a business perspective to have all of that customer data in one repository, if you like, in order to successfully be a marketer in the digital age. But what's important is also what's coming next. And what's coming next is plugging things like Azure machine learning into this loop. So we're already seeing large Sitecore customers using machine learning to create the profiles in real time on their websites. There's a university in Tokyo that offers something, or in Japan that offers something like 30,000 courses to 8 or 9 million people, and there's no way you can write that amount of profiles manually. So they plugged into Azure to track people in real time, and it automatically determines using machine learning what content to show somebody. And the Internet of Things is a reality now. So being able to plug in all those third-party data sources and see how that interacts with your customer data is absolutely critical. So the big picture looks a bit like this. You have all of your lovely Sitecore data, you have your CRM data, you have marketing automation data, and you have social data that is all pouring into a data lake. Typically that's Hadoop because it was designed to do this. And then of course you have an N-level BI reporting layer, which means that you can go down and you can say, show me every customer who engaged in this campaign, that landed on this page, that clicked on this call to action, but did not convert because we want to retarget. Oh, and let's make sure they're within 200 kilometers of New York and their budget is XY and they're interested in this product. You can literally pull that information out really, really quickly, and you can action that. And of course, this is the platform that sets us up for the next wave of the marketing revolution, which is very clearly machine learning and the Internet of Things. I mean, this is coming now, and smart marketers are looking over the shoulder, they're seeing the swell rise, and they're starting to paddle to catch that wave. Time to value is the first step. Single view of the customer is absolutely the second step towards getting there. So I hope you've enjoyed this webinar. We're finishing pretty much on time. My name is Greg Baxter. I work with edynamic. I would love to talk to you about your marketing requirements, but the thing I would love to do most in the world is help you start the journey with Sitecore. It's something I know like the back of my hand, and I would like to show you that this is not quite so complex and not quite so difficult. And I'm an honest kind of guy, so I'm just going to edit my slide right there and put that apostrophe in the right place. Whoops. Okay, so what I'd love to do right now is take any questions that you might have and respond to them. So Ayush, do we have anything on the line?
Thank you so much for the great presentation, Greg. I'm checking the questions as we speak. Looks like we have few questions, Greg.
Sure.
So the first question is that this sounds like it needs a large team to run. What is your experience?
Okay, that's a fantastic question, and it is probably the second biggest question I get. The first one is, this sounds expensive and it's going to take a long time, which is demonstrably not true. The second one is, how many people do we need to run this? I've seen the most successful implementations of Sitecore as marketing capability done by very small teams. For example, the Certified Practicing Accountants Group of Australia is one of our largest professional organisations here, and they have 4 people internally running their Sitecore marketing. In fact, all of their marketing. Their team has a strategist, it has an executive sponsor, it has an analytics person, and it has somebody who used to be a content author who is now an experienced designer. One of the bigger successes that I saw was for a bank, and that bank took a 2-week campaign that cost $60,000, created a personalized campaign microsite that drove a 60% increase in sales the quarter after that microsite was launched, that captured 38,000 full survey responses across customers. So that marketing team has 38,000 responses to a really deep survey, and that was done by one person. So one guy drove that in 2 weeks, and I'll be honest, it was probably the worst 2 weeks of his life, but he did drive a tremendous outcome. So typically we know, and Sitecore knows, that companies don't frequently have a massive strategy component to their marketing team. They might have tons of content authors, but the actual strategy people and the people who make these decisions around personalization and analytics is typically really small. So don't let that be the thing that stops you getting started.
Thank you for your answer, Greg. Looks like we have another question. The second question is that how long does the time to value typically take to accomplish?
Okay, I've seen time to value styled and time to value projects run in at the 2-week mark, but when that's been done, it's been done about one particular business issue. Very typically, the way it works is that I would spend 2 days researching an organisation. We send a pre-workshop questionnaire that teases out the strategic theme, the marketing objectives, and the business objectives. Then I spend a number of days looking at the website and mapping out the digital goals, having as good a shot as I can at mapping out potential personas and profiles. Then there is a 1-day face-to-face workshop, typically with the executive. No word of a lie, it's a fairly intense day. We start, of course, with analytics, and we map that engagement value scale in the morning. We then look at, in the afternoon, what rules-based personalization we should apply on wireframes of the website. We then look at the profiles, and we look at A/B testing. We keep it laser focused on the things that impact business and the engagement value scale. We generate a report. That report gets uptaken, and then it's usually implemented. So there is no reason that a project like this should take longer than 30 days. And at that point, we're actually collecting real-time customer data. So our analytics are working, and what we would normally do is let the strategy run for a couple of months, keeping an eye on how things were going in terms of conversion, and then we would come back for a second phase, and we would do that second phase this time using real analytics data that is captured. So you could expect a time to value project life cycle of around a month tops.
Wow. Thank you so much, Greg, for the detailed insight. So we are 5 minutes ahead into our running time. Do you mind taking one more question from the audience, Greg?
No, not at all. It'd be a pleasure.
Sure. So the third question is that will we need to generate much creative if we do this?
Okay. So far we've got kind of the big 3 questions. One of the things that when we run this workshop we're completely aware of and manage really tightly is that potentially every piece of personalization could trigger the need to create content. So what we focus on is this concept of ambient personalization, where what we're changing are the hero images on the homepage, maybe one or two placeholders on the homepage, and maybe a placeholder on subsequent follower pages. And we really try to keep the amount of rules that we generate to a minimum that impact business. So what we do is we undertake a content register review. We look at what content can be surfaced that's already there, and then we figure out how much additional content needs to be created. But 9 times out of 10, it's essentially a bunch of banners for the hero image or the main placeholder on a website, and it's a number of graphics around calls to action and stuff like that. It's not very often that it's completely plugging in whole areas of content, with one exception. When we turn on profiling, like my friends in Singapore, it can become apparent that you actually never had and do not have right now enough content for a significant segment that's visiting your website. That would be triggering content creation, but obviously that content is vital to be created, because if you have a whole bunch of a significant stakeholder group on your website and they're not seeing any relevant content, that's a job you have to undertake anyway. But typically we would like to try and keep the amount of content generated down so that that can be achievable. Does that kind of make sense? We manage the scope really, really closely, and we keep a laser focus on business outcomes, and we don't go crazy with this stuff. Back when Sitecore first did this, they called it DMS, a digital marketing system. Guys in at Sitecore used to have a little quiet chuckle and call it the dream management system. So part of the art of this is actually being really disciplined about what it is you do and only undertaking those things that are going to have significant business impact.
Well, thank you so much, Greg, for answering the final question in such great detail. And thank you so much for your time with the great presentation. Looks like that there are a few more questions, but we will have to get back to them. Yes, Greg, please go ahead.
Oh, no, we're going to have to deal with them because of time via email. Yeah.
Yes, Greg. So looks like that we'll have to get back to them after the webinar. So thank you, Greg, for your time once again. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We look forward to connecting with you again. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within the next 3 business days. We will also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@edynamic.net with any questions you may have. Thank you once again for joining this webinar. Have a great afternoon or evening, everyone.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much.